TV, and we are presenting to you, we're having a roundtable discussion here on queer Roma, LGBTIQ plus Roma, and with us here today, virtual studio, we have Roland in Budapest, where he still lives and works. He graduated in 2016 from the Hungarian University of Fine Arts, and he was also the recipient of the University in Lisbon in 2014. He works across a range of art forms, including visual and conceptual art, photography, performance, and video, and he exhibits widely in the country at venues including Kunsthalle Budapest, Gallery 8 Budapest, Modem Debrecen 2013, and a variety of others, which you can certainly see. He has a very fine background. And also today, we have here Dr. Lucia Fremlova. She is an international researcher. Say hi, Lucy, so that your picture comes up on the screen.
Hi. Are you?
Okay. And she's an international researcher practicing on working in the domain of ethnicity and race. Their attention to Roma. In her close-up, in her interdisciplinary research with LGBT. She also works at the interface between scholarship, policy, and activism. Her innovative theoretical approach seeks to create a new discourse on Roma within queer theorizing and critical Romani studies. And last and maybe least, we have me. I'm Bila. I am a Roma activist, currently president of an association called La Voix des Rroms here in France. I am a board member of Roma Education Support Trust in the UK. And I'm also a board member of the Center for Intersectional Justice in Berlin. And we're here today to talk about queer Roma issues today. Where are we? How did we get here? How did we contribute to the movement? A little bit more specific. Basically, I'd like to ask Lucy, we've known each other for some time now. And I've actually participated in some of the research that you've done, but you recently did a project. You recently did a project, and it was I don't know how to describe it, on display or was presented, was basically available to the public.
That's correct.
And I just like you to talk, start out by talking to us a little bit about this project. I know Roland participated in this. I didn't get a chance to see all of the work, but I've seen I've seen a lot of photos, and the website. Is this a photo essay, or is there something more behind this?
Sure. Thanks very much, Bill. We have also prepared a presentation that we will show as part of this live streaming. So it was a project which basically built on the doctoral research that I completed at the University of Brighton in 2017, called The Experiences Roma, LGBTIQ People, Queering Roma. And my main goal was basically to make visible the lived experiences of LGBTIQ Roma, which remain invisible not only to non-Roma, but also to many Roma. There was basically no way of knowing that LGBTIQ Roma exists. And also, my thesis is 300 pages long, but not everyone will actually read it, or if they do, they may also put it down after some time. So really, this was mainly to enhance, the research impact of my doctoral thesis in a participatory way, so that academia doesn't remain this kind of ivory tower where basically there is no communication between, the lived experiences or real lives of people, in this case, LGBTIQ Roma. But actually, LGBTIQ Roma themselves shape the representations that they want to show to the outside world, whether it's the non-Roma or Roma non-LGBT world. So that was the main point of this project. And basically, I was very thankful to be able to cooperate with people like Roland Korponovics, Laszlo Farkas, many more people who actually participated in this postdoctoral research. We used a lot of creative methods and methodologies. I was as part of this Economic and Social Research Council founded research, I was able to bring them together for a workshop in March last year, almost a year ago actually. That was the first meeting, where we created some initial photos. And then, through photo elicitation interviews, I was able to actually speak with the individual participants and to establish, what else, LGBTIQ Roma would like to do. And then I also managed to to get some extra funding from the Open Society Foundations to actually hold a second workshop, which took a week. And this took place in September 2019. And during that week, LGBTIQ Roma or the LGBTIQ Roma participants actually, refined and created new self-representations that we then put on a website. So this presentation, which I actually only see the first slide at this point in time, so I'm not sure whether it's moving or not. In this presentation, I included some pictures from the project, but I also included other pictures so that today's viewers can also see that there is already tangible evidence of the impact of LGBTIQ Roma.
Can you comment some of these pictures as they're coming up now? I think everyone can see on the screen.
So you see that there is a picture of queer Roma from Prague 2015, where you were as well, and many of us were. This was like the first major event. The second one is from London Pride 2020, where you were as well, and I chose this Romani lesbian woman so that it also showcases women who are not so visible. But this was a massive event, and a massive accomplishment in terms of actually UK-based LGBTIQ Roma gypsies and travelers being able to put on for the first time, a travel. I think it was called Travel Pride. Yeah.
It was, yeah. In London, it was the first time there was any traveler participation at a mainstream LGBT Pride event.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
And in Prague, was that the first time in 2015 or?
There was prior involvement in 2014. So there was a smaller float organized by Ara Art, as all the other floats had been organized, but this was a much, much bigger event, and also many more Roma participated in 2015 and then 2016 as well. We can move on with the slides so that it also... So I think what I wanted to say as part of this is that the kind of contribution of LGBTIQ Roma and the kind of whole discussion within the movement and among individuals has also shown the benefit of queer theoretical concepts and intersectionality for understanding Roman ethnicity, which until sometime around 2000 was mainly seen through an ethnic lens, through an ethnic frame of reference, and it kind of stabilized Roman identity as a fixed group concept. Whereas, with the lived experiences of LGBTIQ Roma, we also see that other categories of identification shape that ethnicity, and there is this kind of intersectional communication between various aspects of ethnicity, which obviously, academia has been theorizing for a long time. And I'm thankful for, the input of LGBTIQ Roma, because I think it has made a massive contribution in terms of understanding how identities work.
Yeah, so in terms of the results or the outcome, is there, as this project, how would you describe what you feel the impact was?
Sure. So if we move on with
is
the
it still being felt today? Is it something that's yeah.
So I think the impact has been felt definitely. I think I've already described the methodology, so we can also skip this slide and the next one, which is about methodology. And basically, one of the main goals of this exercise was to understand what role self-representations play, and what is their potential and power in terms of challenging, oppression such as anti-Gypsyism and homophobia. So together with the LGBTIQ Romani participants, we created a series of photos, and then those photos, I analyzed those photos, but also the photo elicitation interviews using thematic analysis. And basically, we were able to determine that there are three kind of ways of, or three types of self-representations. So the first one poses a direct challenge to oppression such as anti-Gypsyism, homophobia, transphobia, but also sexism. And when we visualize those lived experiences, we can do it through using basically something different, not necessarily contrary or opposite, that we juxtapose with visual tropes. So if we, to give you an example, we created this whole kind of category or topic called romanticized myth versus romanticized myth or past versus lived experience. And I included one image in the following slide. And basically it uses a visual trope. Can we go? Yes. So it uses a visual trope, in this case, fortune telling, a caravan, and a gay Romani man is facing that caravan. He's kind of facing the stereotype, if you like. But if you look on our website, which we will also show later, there are many more pictures, many more photographs in this series, or in this related to this topic. So, for instance, one of the pictures has an image of a famous image of Roma from 1968, taken by Koudelka. And this is juxtaposed with the present lived reality of LGBTIQ Roma in 2019. So basically, trying to tackle the notion that certain representations are stereotypical, even though the Koudelka image that we will see later, may have been the reality of that group in the past, it certainly is not the case in 40, 50 years later. So I think that's the thinking behind it. So that's the first type in this typology of self-representations. The second one, which is on the following slide, is called normalization or assimilation, which is basically a kind of queer subversive take on the notion that people who are members of a minority, whether it's ethnic, racial, sexual, or gender, can kind of infiltrate, if you like, the norm in order to dismantle it. Yeah. So these would be, images, ordinary images from everyday life, where you can't really tell who is in the image, whether it's a trans couple, whether it's a Roma couple, because it really kind of imitates reality or the norm. Let's say the norm, the social norm, which is usually white normative or heteronormative or cis normative. And also within this typology, within this type, we also try to kind of incorporate the notion that the images contain, survival, or the notion of survival in the face of anti-Gypsyism, homophobia, transphobia, and the resulting stereotypes. So the images, you wouldn't know unless you know, or unless you're told by the captions. So one of the images is included in the next slide. So here, this is a kind of ordinarily looking scene, everyday scene. But if you look closer, there are many hints, whether it's the protagonist in the photo or the books on the table. There is much more to the image. So that's the kind of second typology or second type within this typology. And the third type is basically around limits of self-representation and pure, inverted commas, pure self-representation, because there is no such thing as pure. But you can also just self-represent yourself without trying to actually defy or challenge any of these oppressions, whether it's anti-Gypsyism, homophobia, lesbophobia, or transphobia. I included that in the following image, or in the following slide with an image. Right. So here, it's a kind of playful, queer take on, flags, the LGBT flag, the Roma flag, many more other, aspects that could be discussed, the role of nakedness, nudity, which is often recognized as a taboo in many aspects of Romani culture or, in the different subcultures. But also, the wish to self-express and self-represent yourself. But of course, there are also limits. And the limits kind of encapsulate the key notion within queer theory and queer theorizing, and that's that the main notion is that if you self-express, if you represent yourself, it doesn't mean that it holds for other individuals. So that's something that we explored, as part of a series of.
Could you repeat, starting with the main notion? And because I'm sorry, I didn't hear, and I don't know if it's just me or the connection.
Yeah, I didn't see you for a bit. So the notion that when you generate a self-representation, this truly holds only for yourself. It can't hold for a group, or you can't represent a whole group. You can't represent LGBTIQ Roma as a group. And in fact, is there such a group? So if we move to the next image, the next slide. There are other ways of self-representing. And I chose two images which kind of came up in the individual photo elicitation interviews. So one is of very famous Romani lesbian actress Mihaela Dragan as part of Bucharest Pride 2019, where she's also using. I think we have some technical issues right now.
I can hear you. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So where she's using the Romani and LGBTIQ flag together, but also her clothing plays a very specific role. The second image is of Josef Marton as part of his separate project called Owning the Game, which actually ran parallel to our project. And here, this was his way of representing himself in the exhibition, in the project. But he also made some very key observations about the role of self-representation. So if we move to the next slide, please. Basically, he said, how can I truly represent myself if I need to continuously think about the majority view? In that case, I have a feeling that I'm serving their needs and not mine. So that's why I think self-representation and challenging stereotypes cannot be together. So there is a limit to self-representation or pure representation, if you like, because it does not have to serve another purpose. It can just exist on its own, but at the same time, it can be used as an efficient means to challenge harmful stereotypes. And in this connection, I also wanted to emphasize the role of clothing, hairstyles, for instance, the fact that certain types of clothing and hairstyles has been co-opted into the heteronormative definition of Romipen, and anyone who trespasses that boundary is then considered un-Romani. And the notion that clothing is actually a political statement, and many of the Roma, the LGBTIQ Roma that I have interviewed, use clothing to challenge harmful stereotypes within society, sometimes at their own peril, because it has happened that they have been either verbally or physically abused as a result of wearing clothing which is not considered masculine or feminine. But here we also see that really the personal in this case clothing becomes political, and it is political. So that's how I would summarize the findings of this research, of this creative methods project. And I think, these findings kind of hold true even now or next year or in a couple of years.
Well, I think they certainly hold true. I think I'd like to just remark on basically these three themes or these three types of images that you brought up, and the parallels, or how I think those are excellent examples, and it really makes a lot of sense to use that, because whether it's Romani people from the past and in the present, and this notion of, are we stuck in time? If you look at old pictures of Gajos in the past, from the Great Depression, no, they don't still wear the same. Economy has changed and styles have changed. So why does that hold for us? And it's the same for the image of what people used to think was queer or gay or lesbian in the past. So this parallel, or this choice of comparison holds true for all cultures, and for this case, Roma and queer. It makes a lot of sense. The picture of who is initiated in, how do you really recognize what's in this picture? And if you're initiated into Roma culture, you will understand something else than someone who is not. Often when you see photos of Roma on display anywhere, if you're initiated into, is this a man? Is this a woman? How are these two men? Who are these people, and what is their life? If you're not initiated into understanding that such people exist and you've never seen them, how can you understand what you're actually looking at? And the individual versus the group, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's only by looking at these things that we can come to a kind of mutual respect and common understanding. Because if you're from one group and you understand that there are rules, you understand that there's another group that has a different way of looking things, and it's through this exposure that we basically learn about each other, and we learn that there are other things that exist that we might not have ever noticed before in our lives. So Roland, how did you come upon this project, and what was your role in all of this?
Hi everybody, hi Bila and hi Lucy.
Hi.
So Lucia reached out for me about this project in March for the first time, and since I'm a visual artist and also happen to be gay and Roma, I felt myself, responsible to participate in such important projects like that. I was very interested in the topics we finally found, as Lucy described it earlier, that which are the main segments we should mapping when we are trying to representing ourselves in these topics, LGBT and Roma. So from my side, as a visual artist, that's the most interesting thing. The part was basically the practice of meeting different activists. We are actually closed together, and we have some kind of tools and how we are starting to build up different images on the topics we discussed we want to express. So for instance, when we had some settings in a flat where we stayed, and we just started to brainstorming, okay, what do we want to talk about? And after that, we just decided we want to create stock images. What you could see in the topic of normalizing or image, or sort of like that, and it was very, very interesting. How do I see myself as a so-called LGBTIQ Roma person in a normal situation?
What is a normal situation?
Like, not normal everyday situation, like, having some time in the living room, doing housework, going on the beach, or stuff like that. And that was one of the main questions, like, is it important to or how we are highlighting that we are actually Roma or LGBT people? What is easier to highlight visually? What is more visible on us, or sexual orientation or gender identity, or racial features and what do we want to show more, how we are balancing these two without the intention to, not like, keep it naturally, not even putting it really strongly to the image. Like, I don't know if you understand what I mean. Like,
I'm not exactly sure, and maybe let me just ask another question, and maybe you can interweave the answer you're trying to give now, because I'm wondering if this was a concern for you, how people might perceive you afterwards. Were you worried that, like, how you're going to be perceived in this work, it will hurt you in some way, or was this a way to promote yourself, or is this something that you feel that maybe you'll be stereotyped and seen only one way after this, or yeah, what?
Well,
So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So if you're creating an image and your plan is to represent yourself, people will misunderstand you in any way. People will stereotype, makes you put you in stereotypical narratives anyway. The main question for me was that which is the main sort of how to put that? So what is the main misunderstanding or main stereotypes I let people to fall in when they are reading this image? Because they will misread it anyways. They will stereotype us anyways, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Can I just interject briefly? I think we also discussed the role of the environment, the actual, place where it took place, where the, photo shoot took place. And we kind of agreed that different things will be interpreted differently. For instance, in Brighton, where the photo shoot took place on both occasions, because there, or within the UK or within a UK city, Lazzi and Rolly, who feature in the photos, in these photos, and also Antonella, will be read not as Roma necessarily, but as part of a multicultural society. However, if those photos were shown or actually taken in Romania or in the Czech Republic or in Hungary, they will be decoded very differently. So the role of context, in this case, the setting, the environment, the society, plays a massive role. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. No, I think it's good that you explain that because, also for me here trying to present this work, from my experience, also having lived in the Czech Republic, I was out as someone who was gay, but I was not out as Roma in the workplace while I was there. And when I was in the US, I was maybe telling people I was Roma, but I didn't tell them that I was gay. And I was always, depending on the context, where did I feel more comfortable? What did I say? How did I share it? What was perceived? Until finally one day I just didn't care anymore, and then it just evolved in a different way. But I think all of these things, who are you talking to? When are you talking to them? How much do you reveal of yourself is an important part of this context. I'm glad you were explaining that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and basically, why was it important for you, Roland, to be a part of this?
Well, I feel responsible to, as a visual artist, to help other people, especially activists, to helping visualizing their idea, and also it's important for me to representing myself in my art. As an LGBT plus and Roma people, my art is basically made with the tool of self-representation. In many cases, I'm reflecting on my gay identity with video performances and photographs. So when Lucy asked me to participate, that was an obvious yes.
Okay.
And also, So regarding to the current situation with the coronavirus and stuff, unfortunately, we had to postpone a workshop that we were planning to do on the countryside in Hungary, when I would work with the children, young Romani children, not only children, they are the ages from 10 to 18, who happen to be musicians, and we will later on going to organize a workshop with them where we're gonna try to work with them to question the feminine masculine stereotypes, what they already have, and trying to create different artistic situation with the help of performative arts. And I found it important to be visible in a community where there are children.
Okay, and when was the first time that you did something like this, like outside of Budapest in the countryside? Is this this year the first time, or is this?
Yes, actually, this will be the first time. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking now in terms of just how things have evolved over the years. I mean, it was 2014, 15 when I think the first Roma participation in gay pride was occurring in places like Prague and Budapest. It was when we had our first conference. It was around that time, and it seems like people are a little bit less afraid to talk about these things now. Do you think that there has been an impact by some of these, what I sometimes think of as just a small event here with a few people who end up talking about it and spreading the information. But do you think that there's been something more than that that's happening, that's allowing you to be able to go to the countryside as opposed to 10 years ago or something?
Well, I think yes. It's a good question. That if I would go to the countryside 10 years ago, how would it come out? But I have this feeling that now, today in 2020, I'm also myself are braver a little bit, and I want to think that people are more open. And again, it's very important to start to work with the younger generation, with children. And for them to see and meet people who are visibly queer and Roma at the same time, because I would be very happy to meet somebody openly gay as me in the same age as they were.
Yes, I think I'm wondering if there's anybody out there listening to this and not quite sure what to think or not understanding when we're talking about working with children. It's about letting them know that we exist. I also think when I was younger or growing up, are there people out there that are like me? How do I find out if there are people, or is there something wrong with me because I think this way, I feel this way? Are there other queer Roma out there, or is it just me? And it's impossible to talk to anyone about this because no one will understand all of the conflicting issues that are going through my head. I think the fact that this is open to be seen, and that children can see that there are different kinds of people. Without, this is not forcing someone to believe one thing or another, but this is just showing them different things that exist. I think that's a very important part of what this project is, and what all of us are doing. Sorry, I have a comment here. Latsi, can you put up maybe the last picture in the slide, Lucy?
Yeah, sure.
We should take a look at some more of the end of the presentation as well.
I mean, I basically said most of the things that I wanted to say. I wanted to make room for, the actual lived experiences of LGBTIQ Roma. Latsi has been also showing the website with the remaining images, or, most of the images, because not every image is on the website for, different reasons. But so we came to the end of my presentation, basically.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Roland, in summarizing, or we can come back to you? I was just wondering, we also have a statement from another person, Antonella, who basically is a transgendered Roma sex worker activist who couldn't join us here today. And I think we have a recorded message from her. Would this be a good time to listen to that?
Absolutely.
Or if Lati needs some more time, maybe Roland, you can make a few comments as we're deciding which action we'll take.
Maybe just some comments that we are. Yes, you mentioned that importance to be visible, and I was just wondering from time to time that the importance of where we are visible actually. So yeah, we made these exhibitions in different institutions. We made a website where we can present our works, but still in this time that we are living in, especially people who are living in not too good circumstances, maybe internet access is not available. So I'm speaking in my name as an artist, also as a human being, that once you are in the position that you are have the tool to express yourself, you need to go on spot and you need to reach out to the people face to face that you feel responsible for. In my case, I just because of what I mentioned before, as I'm getting older, I feel more responsible for the younger generation because from all these stuffs, I'm reflecting too in my art, my sexual identity, my racial identity. Whether these are traumas or good things, I mainly came from my childhood, and yeah. So that's why I feel important to, speak to those people in different ages where the big impacts have you, which just shape your personality. Maybe that one, yeah.
Can I make an observation as well?
Yes, please.
So one of the reasons to put on this project was basically to be able to visualize the various different lived experiences of LGBTIQ Roma, but also bearing in mind that just as I said in relation to the different settings, different cultural context, visibility can be a good thing. So especially when we're talking about, let's say bullying or anti-Gypsyism, homophobia in the school setting, children who are gay, children who are Roma, children who are LGBTIQ Roma need to know there are others like them. And it was one of the main kind of findings, not just as part of my doctoral thesis, but also as part of this research project, that there is this almost commitment by the individual participants to, and responsibility, a sense of responsibility for teenagers and individuals who may find themselves in that situation. So visibility in that respect is a good thing. However, also knowing that historically, both Roma and LGBTIQ people and LGBTIQ Roma at this intersection have been hyper-visibilized, and that hyper-visibility often cost them lives, or it resulted in massive injuries, it resulted in genocide, it resulted in the Holocaust. So we have to be able to distinguish the kind of benefit but also pitfalls of visibility, and when it is good and when it's not good. And of course, conducting research within this very tricky terrain presents many ethical issues, and those we kind of spoke about on a continuous basis. So that's also one of the reasons that, for instance, the online virtual gallery doesn't contain all the images, because we know that certain topics can be only talked about face-to-face in personal encounters. And that's what we did, for instance, at the seminar during the launch of the exhibition in Portsmouth in November. And, some images, were seen by community members as problematic if they were taken out of context. So, for instance, the fortune teller, or the fortune telling caravan, and in this day and age where everything can be screenshotted, we are aware that there is also responsibility with us in terms of what can be taken out of context and then abused against LGBTIQ Roma. So I think there is a lot of, debate. There has been a lot of debate within the group, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm also thankful that the exhibition exists. It has been requested by Slovenian, Ljubljana Pride, many other events. I'm thankful that it's online because, of course, none of the events can take place now, and who knows when they will be put, on show. But yeah, that's the kind of that's our penny to the discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
Okay.
Just one small comment, if you don't mind. Yeah, it's a very important to find those artistic tools. What we are using, for instance, myself and as artist, I'm thinking a lot of times about how to enter, for instance, a Roma or other kind of smaller communities as a visibly gay person, to not put any closeted LGBT persons in danger with my simple presence. So this is, I found it like an artistic challenge. What is the way? How is the way to actually help members of the LGBT Roma communities without putting them in more danger? Yeah, that could be another big topic. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Because if you don't have a safe space, you don't reveal your identity, and that's my experience from working in human resources in the corporate world. Large companies that pride themselves on attracting the best people, have the best diversity policies. They have policies to basically treat any minority, whether it's ethnic minority, a religious minority, a sexual minority, that you can be who you are. That doesn't matter. What matters is how smart you are, how you work, and how you do your job. And we want the best people, and we want different people here. And that's how a lot of companies work, or at least try to work. And the same needs to go for government and society in general. If I don't feel comfortable walking down the street and letting everyone know that I'm Roma, I'm not going to let them know. I'm going to keep it, and I'm not going to necessarily let everybody know on every occasion. I might do it in a specific place at a specific time, because I have to decide when I feel safe and when I feel comfortable. If society doesn't allow me to feel safe all the time, everywhere, then they won't see me, and they can't claim that I'm not doing what I need to do to lead my people or to show an example, because I don't have to die just to be a good example. So everybody has to do what they feel comfortable with. The question of when is visibility good and when is it not good. If you are in the closet as a Roma, or a closet as the LGBT person, and you're oppressing the same group, then obviously that person is outed, and that needs to be clearly seen. But if they're not, if they're actually living their lives and not hurting anyone, but not being completely open, well, they have to feel comfortable themselves. And this is something that, is always a touchy subject. Latsi, are we going to do a video from Antonella now? Is this the right time? We have 10 minutes. Okay, so there will be a link under the presentation, and those who would like to watch it will be able to watch it after. We will not be transmitting it right now, just for everyone who can hear, who could not hear basically our cameraman from behind the scenes, Latsi, just now. So, is there anything else?
Bill, sorry.
Yeah, please.
Yes, I would like to say something, and it's related to what you have just said. So basically, the issue of safety, it's something that came up at the annual conference, ILGA Europe conference, during a workshop where we also spoke about, the LGBTIQ mainstream movement and how it can improve its work, or not can, must actually, because there is quite a lot of anti-Gypsyism and racism within the LGBTIQ mainstream movement. So the issue of safety or safe spaces for Roma in particular, but not just Roma, any people of color, was a massive topic, and something that did have quite a lot of attention, but I feel that it's something that definitely needs to be talked about much more, because just like you said, it is not automatic that if you are a member of one minority group, in this case LGBTIQ, you will understand the experiences of another minority group, in this case Roma. And one would expect that somehow this will happen, but it doesn't. And the other point I wanted to say is the safety or feelings of safety for LGBTIQ Roma within Roma organizations, because it goes both ways. Yeah, and I think it has really improved in some ways. There is still lots of work to do. At the same time, I would like to commend Roma organizations for doing what is, in my opinion, much more work than the LGBTIQ movement. And I think, even this broadcast, this live streaming, the fact that we're doing it on the International Roma Day shows how much progress there has been over the past decade, and specifically over the past 5 years, in my opinion. So, I really want to thank everyone within the Romani movement and the LGBTIQ Roma movement in particular for being there, as role models, risking, making quite huge sacrifices as well, but also leading by example, because, this is not easy and it takes a lot of courage. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for that observation. And I would like to take it a little bit further and say, while I agree, and I do, I think there's been tremendous progress in this sense. There is still, nevertheless, more work to be done. Mm-hmm. I think we all agree. And while there are, the idea of intersectionality, how things are lived on a day-to-day basis, most Roma and most LGBT people should understand intersectionality. However, it's not obvious. That's why it's an academic science. That's why we have data and we have presentations like this that can help explain some of these phenomena and with data, and to understand what is actually happening. And I see also within Roma organizations more willingness, openness to talk about such items, which makes more room for people to feel comfortable, which is good. At the same time, I don't see very many leadership roles. I think there are, just as there is a lavender ceiling in the management world for LGBTQ people, a glass ceiling for women, I think there is a sort of a ceiling for LGBTIQ Roma within the Romani movement. I don't see very many LGBT people that are showcased, displayed, put into roles with significant responsibility. And I think sometimes there is still a bit of a reticence to the community might not like that. Let's not make too big of a deal about that. Whereas there is no data or science behind those reactions. Those are gut reactions. And when you look at some communities and how they are accepting and others how they are not, you can understand better what those things are. So this is why we need academia to work with us to be able to help, make things move forward. And that's why I think this work by people like you, Lucy, is very useful. And
thank you very much.
The intersection between activism and academia can be very useful for all of us. And that's where I would like to leave it. If Roland, anything else you want to say?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay. So then that's it for today, folks. Thank you, Latsi, Lucy, Roland.
Thank you, everyone.
For the opportunity, and we're very happy that we could talk to you. And if it was interesting, maybe we can try to do it again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great International Roma Day.